The war had ended 7 years ago, but the skies of Earth still glowed with the color of fire. The clouds carried the scars of old battles, where alien ships once burned and fell like dying stars. Every night, faint lights crossed the horizon, not shooting stars, but pieces of machines that still drifted above, reminders of the day humanity refused to surrender. Captain Orrin Cole stood at the edge of the ruined New London Wall, watching the horizon flicker red. The air still smelled of metal and smoke, even after all these years. Behind him, the city was silent except for the hum of old generators and the whispers of the wind through broken towers. Humanity was alive, but barely. They called that day the fall of Earth, but it was never truly a fall. It was defiance. When the alien dominion came, they wanted obedience. They wanted humans to kneel and accept the rule of the stars. But Earth fought. And though billions died, the spirit of resistance lived. Orrin was one of the soldiers who had seen it all, the burning skies, the fall of continents, and the strange silence that followed when the last alien warship vanished into the dark. Now, 7 years later, strange signals were returning. The old satellites, dead for decades, began to whisper again. At first, the engineers thought it was static, just cosmic noise. But the patterns were too precise, too familiar. It was the same frequency the Dominion had used during the invasion. Someone, or something, was sending a message back to Earth. Orrin's communicator buzzed. "Captain, you should come to the control tower," said a voice, tense and low. It was Officer Myra, one of the few surviving signal analysts. "You need to see this yourself." He climbed the cracked stairs of the old military tower, his boots echoing in the empty halls. The command room was filled with dim light from flickering screens. Myra stood by the console, her eyes wide. On the main display, a repeating message pulsed in bright red text, "We are coming back." For a long moment, no one spoke. The room felt smaller, colder. Outside, the sky thundered as if reacting to the words. Orrin's heart beat faster. The Dominion had been gone for 7 years. They couldn't be coming back, not now, not after all humanity had rebuilt. "Could this be a trick?" he asked quietly. "Maybe some scavenger ship trying to scare us?" Myra shook her head. "The code matches exactly. This is Dominion encryption. Old, but real." Orrin turned to the window. Far away, in the sky's deep red glow, something flashed, a line of lights, moving slowly but steadily. They were not meteors. They were not satellites. They were formation lights, and they were descending. He clenched his fists. "Get me the defense grid online," he ordered. "Even if it's old, even if it's broken. We don't wait this time." The crew scrambled into motion. Power surged through the old circuits, and the ground trembled as ancient cannons turned toward the sky. The hum of awakening metal filled the air, the sound of Earth remembering how to fight. Then, the lights vanished. The radar screens went black. One by one, the systems failed again, leaving only static. The message on the main screen changed once more. The new text read, "You never defeated US." Myra's voice broke the silence. "Sir, what do we do if it's real?" Orrin looked at her, his face calm but his eyes burning with the same defiance that had kept Earth alive. "Then we remind them," he said, "that humans never stop fighting." Outside, thunder rolled again, and a streak of light tore through the clouds. It wasn't lightning. It was something entering the atmosphere, something large and fast. The alarms started to scream. In that moment, everyone in the tower knew, the skies of Earth were burning once more, and this time, the war was not coming. It had already begun. The city of New London burned beneath a sky of red and smoke. The massive Dominion ship hovered above, silent but full of menace. Its dark shadow covered streets and ruins, swallowing the light. Every few seconds, a deep hum came from within it, a low, living sound, like a heartbeat too large for the world. Captain Orrin Cole stood on the edge of a shattered building, dust covering his face, eyes fixed on the monster in the sky. His men were scattered, fighting in small groups across the city. Communication lines were breaking. Power grids were failing. But none of that mattered. Humanity was still standing. Myra's voice came through the radio, faint but clear. "Captain, the main reactor of the enemy ship is exposed during landing. If we hit it with enough force, we might destroy it." Orrin looked around. We don't have missiles strong enough for that. There's one left, Myra replied. An old nuclear shell in the underground vault. It was never used after the First War. If we can reach it, we can fire it manually. For a moment, Orin said nothing. The vault was 5 kilometers away, under the ruins of the old defense command. It was deep inside enemy territory now. The streets between here and there were filled with Dominion soldiers. I'll go, Orin said finally. Get a transport ready. Myra protested. You won't make it alone. I won't be alone, he said, glancing at the few soldiers beside him. We'll move fast, stay low. If we fail, there won't be a city left anyway. He climbed down the broken stairs, stepping into the smoke-filled streets. The wind carried the sound of war, energy blasts, collapsing towers, human voices shouting in the dark. The ground trembled as another Dominion pod hit nearby, sending dust and fire through the air. Orin and his small team moved through the ruins, weapons ready. They passed bodies, both human and alien, lying together in the ash. The smell of burned metal was thick. Above them, drones floated like silent ghosts, scanning the streets. Stay under cover, Orin whispered. If one sees us, we're finished. They crawled through a collapsed tunnel, crossed a flooded street, and finally reached the edge of the old command zone. The vault entrance was just ahead, a reinforced door buried in rubble. But between them and the door stood a patrol of Dominion soldiers, tall and motionless, their eyes glowing cold blue. Orin raised his rifle, signaling the others to spread out. He took a deep breath and fired first. The bullet hit the closest soldier's armor, sparking against its surface. The creature turned its head, not in pain, but in focus. Then the street exploded in light. The fight was brutal and fast. The Dominion moved with machine-like precision, every motion deadly. But Orin's team was human, unpredictable, desperate, alive. They used smoke, debris, and fire to confuse the enemy. One by one, the alien soldiers fell, until only silence remained. Orin's arm was bleeding, but he didn't stop. Open the vault, he said. 2 soldiers pried open the door, using the last of their strength. The air inside was cold and dry. Lights flickered weakly as they entered the forgotten bunker. At the far end of the room stood a large cylinder covered in dust, the old nuclear warhead, labeled Project Dawnlight. Myra's voice came again through the radio. You found it? Yes, Orin said. Preparing to activate. He wiped the dirt from the control panel and entered the manual code. The old system hummed to life, warning lights turning orange. The weapon still worked. Somehow, after all these years, it had waited. Suddenly, the radio crackled with static, then changed. A voice came through, deep, alien, and calm. It spoke in a language humanity had not heard since the First War. The sound sent chills down Orin's spine. Myra's voice returned, panicked. Sir, the Dominion is broadcasting across all channels. They're sending a message to every human receiver. The alien voice continued, now translated by the old comm systems, humans of Earth. You fight again. You bleed again. You never learn. This world belongs to us. Orin stared at the glowing missile, anger rising in his chest. He pressed the activation switch and spoke into his radio. Tell them this, Earth still stands. He and his team dragged the missile toward the surface launch tunnel. The ground above shook harder now. The Dominion ship was lowering closer, its energy core glowing bright white. The invasion was reaching its peak. Just as they reached the launch pad, a shadow fell over them. From the smoke emerged something larger than the rest, a Dominion commander. Its armor shimmered with strange light, and its voice was like metal grinding. You should have died with your world, it said. Orin raised his weapon, but the alien moved faster. It struck him hard, sending him crashing to the ground. Sparks flew as the two fought, man against machine, blood against steel. Orin's armor cracked, his vision blurred, but he didn't stop. With one last push, he grabbed the detonator and pressed it against the alien's chest. He whispered, "This is for Earth." The explosion tore through the bunker, shaking the city above. The nuclear blast launched upward, striking the Dominion ship directly in its core. For a moment, the sky turned white. Then came silence. Myra watched from the tower as the enemy ship split apart, its pieces falling like dark rain. She covered her mouth, tears in her eyes. "Captain, please answer," she whispered into the radio. But only static replied. Outside, the sky glowed brighter than before. The burning clouds slowly faded to grey. For the first time in years, the wind carried no sound of war, only the quiet breath of survival. But deep in orbit, far above the burning Earth, another signal began to blink. Someone, or something, had received the message. The war was not over. The city of New London burned beneath a sky of red and smoke. The massive Dominion ship hovered above, silent but full of menace. Its dark shadow covered streets and ruins, swallowing the light. Every few seconds, a deep hum came from within it, a low, living sound, like a heartbeat too large for the world. Captain Orrin Cole stood on the edge of a shattered building, dust covering his face, eyes fixed on the monster in the sky. His men were scattered, fighting in small groups across the city. Communication lines were breaking. Power grids were failing. But none of that mattered. Humanity was still standing. Myra's voice came through the radio, faint but clear. "Captain, the main reactor of the enemy ship is exposed during landing. If we hit it with enough force, we might destroy it." Orrin looked around. "We don't have missiles strong enough for that." "There's one left," Myra replied. "An old nuclear shell in the underground vault. It was never used after the First War. If we can reach it, we can fire it manually." For a moment, Orrin said nothing. The vault was 5 kilometers away, under the ruins of the old defense command. It was deep inside enemy territory now. The streets between here and there were filled with Dominion soldiers. "I'll go," Orrin said finally. "Get a transport ready." Myra protested. "You won't make it alone." "I won't be alone," he said, glancing at the few soldiers beside him. "We'll move fast, stay low. If we fail, there won't be a city left anyway." He climbed down the broken stairs, stepping into the smoke-filled streets. The wind carried the sound of war, energy blasts, collapsing towers, human voices shouting in the dark. The ground trembled as another Dominion pod hit nearby, sending dust and fire through the air. Orrin and his small team moved through the ruins, weapons ready. They passed bodies, both human and alien, lying together in the ash. The smell of burned metal was thick. Above them, drones floated like silent ghosts, scanning the streets. "Stay under cover," Orrin whispered. "If one sees us, we're finished." They crawled through a collapsed tunnel, crossed a flooded street, and finally reached the edge of the old command zone. The vault entrance was just ahead, a reinforced door buried in rubble. But between them and the door stood a patrol of Dominion soldiers, tall and motionless, their eyes glowing cold blue. Orrin raised his rifle, signaling the others to spread out. He took a deep breath and fired first. The bullet hit the closest soldier's armor, sparking against its surface. The creature turned its head, not in pain, but in focus. Then the street exploded in light. The fight was brutal and fast. The Dominion moved with machine-like precision, every motion deadly. But Orrin's team was human, unpredictable, desperate, alive. They used smoke, debris, and fire to confuse the enemy. One by one, the alien soldiers fell, until only silence remained. Orrin's arm was bleeding, but he didn't stop. "Open the vault," he said. 2 soldiers pried open the door, using the last of their strength. The air inside was cold and dry. Lights flickered weakly as they entered the forgotten bunker. At the far end of the room stood a large cylinder covered in dust, the old nuclear warhead, labeled Project Dawnlight. Myra's voice came again through the radio. "You found it?" "Yes," Orrin said. "Preparing to activate." He wiped the dirt from the control panel and entered the manual code. The old system hummed to life, warning lights turning orange. The weapon still worked. Somehow, after all these years, it had waited. Suddenly, the radio crackled with static, then changed. A voice came through, deep, alien, and calm. It spoke in a language humanity had not heard since the First War. The sound sent chills down Orrin's spine. Myra's voice returned, panicked. "Sir, the Dominion is broadcasting across all channels. They're sending a message to every human receiver." The alien voice continued, now translated by the old comm systems, humans of Earth. You fight again. You bleed again. You never learn. This world belongs to us. Orin stared at the glowing missile, anger rising in his chest. He pressed the activation switch and spoke into his radio. Tell them this, Earth still stands. He and his team dragged the missile toward the surface launch tunnel. The ground above shook harder now. The Dominion ship was lowering closer, its energy core glowing bright white. The invasion was reaching its peak. Just as they reached the launch pad, a shadow fell over them. From the smoke emerged something larger than the rest, a Dominion commander. Its armor shimmered with strange light, and its voice was like metal grinding. You should have died with your world, it said. Orin raised his weapon, but the alien moved faster. It struck him hard, sending him crashing to the ground. Sparks flew as the two fought, man against machine, blood against steel. Orin's armor cracked, his vision blurred, but he didn't stop. With one last push, he grabbed the detonator and pressed it against the alien's chest. He whispered, "This is for Earth." The explosion tore through the bunker, shaking the city above. The nuclear blast launched upward, striking the Dominion ship directly in its core. For a moment, the sky turned white. Then came silence. Myra watched from the tower as the enemy ship split apart, its pieces falling like dark rain. She covered her mouth, tears in her eyes. "Captain, please answer," she whispered into the radio. But only static replied. Outside, the sky glowed brighter than before. The burning clouds slowly faded to gray. For the first time in years, the wind carried no sound of war, only the quiet breath of survival. But deep in orbit, far above the burning Earth, another signal began to blink. Someone, or something, had received the message. The war was not over. The blast had faded hours ago, but its echo still rolled across the land. New London was half in ruins, yet it stood. The great Dominion ship that once covered the sky was now nothing more than burning fragments scattered across the horizon. The people who had survived came out from their shelters and looked up with disbelief. For the first time in years, the sky looked clear. Myra stood on the top of the control tower, her face covered in ash, her eyes red from smoke and tears. She held the radio close, calling again and again. "Captain Orin, do you read me? Please respond." Only static. She tried again, her voice breaking a little. "You did it, Captain. You saved us. Please, answer me." Still nothing. The silence was heavy, almost painful. Around her, soldiers were cheering, hugging, crying, but Myra couldn't celebrate. Orin was gone. The man who had carried Earth's hope had vanished in the explosion that saved them. She looked out over the smoking battlefield. Pieces of alien metal burned across the plains like fallen stars. Some glowed with strange light, pulsing as if still alive. Engineers began collecting samples, but Myra noticed something odd. The fragments were cooling too quickly. It was as if they were dying. Then, her console beeped. A faint signal appeared on the radar, weak but familiar. Her heart jumped. No, it can't be. She opened the frequency. The signal pattern matched Orin's personal beacon, the one in his armor. It was coming from beyond the blast zone, near the edge of the crater. Without waiting for orders, she grabbed her gear and ran. The streets were broken and full of smoke, but Myra didn't stop. She climbed over debris and through cracked tunnels until she reached the crater's edge. The ground there was scorched black, glowing faintly in places where radiation still burned. In the center of it all lay a piece of the Dominion commander's armor, twisted, melted, and silent. Beside it, half buried in ash, was something that made her freeze. It was Orin's helmet. The visor was cracked, but inside, there was no body. The beacon was still active, blinking softly. She touched the helmet gently. "Captain, where are you?" Behind her, a low hum filled the air. She turned sharply. One of the alien fragments was glowing again, brighter this time. The surface shifted like liquid metal, forming strange symbols she didn't understand. Then, it projected a small hologram. For a moment, she thought it was another Dominion code, but then the image focused, and it was Orin. His voice came through, rough and distant. "Myra, if you're seeing this, it means the ship is down." He paused, looking tired but calm. "I didn't make it out." But listen carefully. What we destroyed wasn't their main fleet. It was only a vanguard, a scout ship testing Earth's defenses. The real invasion fleet, it's still out there. Myra's eyes widened. No. Orin continued. They're not coming to conquer. Not this time. They're coming to retrieve something. Something buried on Earth before the war began. They called it the seed. I don't know what it is, but they fear humans have found it. The image flickered, static cutting through his voice. Find the seed before they do. That's our only chance. Then the hologram faded, and the metal fragment cracked apart, turning to dust. Myra stood there, frozen, her mind spinning. A new fear began to rise inside her. The Dominion hadn't just wanted control, they had been searching for something. And if Orin was right, the real war hadn't even started yet. Back at the tower, reports began coming in from other cities. Strange signals, deep under the ground. Old bunkers waking up. Machines buried for centuries beginning to move. The Earth itself was stirring, as if remembering something ancient. Myra returned to the command room, her face pale but her voice steady. Prepare the long-range transmitters. We're sending a message to every surviving colony. The Dominion is still coming, and this time, they're not after us, they're after what we're protecting. Her second-in-command frowned. And what are we protecting, Myra looked out the window, where the dawn was breaking through smoke and flame. Something powerful enough to scare an empire, she said quietly. Something they call the seed. Outside, the sky began to change again. Small lights appeared at the edge of space, distant, silent, and slowly growing larger. The people of Earth looked up, their victory still fresh, their hope fragile. They didn't know yet that the next battle would decide not just their survival, but the fate of everything living beneath those burning skies. 3 days after the fall of the Dominion ship, the world was still trying to breathe again. Fires still burned in the ruins of New London. The air smelled of ash and rain. Survivors worked quietly, rebuilding walls, cleaning streets, and burying the dead. For a moment, it almost felt peaceful. But Myra knew peace never lasted long. She stood in the war room, surrounded by half-broken screens and flickering maps. Signals from across the planet showed the same strange pattern. Deep underground, something was waking up. Machines, energy cores, and old ruins that no one had touched for centuries were now alive again. The Dominion wasn't gone. They had left something behind. A soldier entered the room. The exploration team is ready. Transport is fueled and waiting. Myra nodded. Good. We move before nightfall. The mission was simple on paper, find what the Dominion called the seed. But no one knew what it really was. Some said it was a weapon, others believed it was a kind of living technology. The only clue came from Orin's final message. And Myra believed him. She always did. As the sun set, a small dropship lifted off from the ruins and flew toward the wastelands once known as the Siberian Zone. The land there had been empty since the First War. Cold winds swept across endless plains of glass and ice, where nothing human lived anymore. Inside the dropship, Myra checked her equipment. The pilot, a young man named Reyes, glanced at her nervously. You really think the captain's message was real? Maybe it was just static. Myra shook her head. I heard his voice. I know what I saw. Orin was alive when he recorded that message. And if he was right, then this place hides the reason the Dominion came here. They flew in silence for hours until the radar beeped. A signal, faint but constant, was coming from deep below the ice. The coordinates matched perfectly with the data Orin had sent before his last stand. Reyes frowned. That's not a natural signal. It's too regular. Almost like a heartbeat. The dropship landed in a storm of snow and dust. The team stepped out, flashlights cutting through the darkness. The wind howled like something alive. Over here, one of the engineers called out. Beneath the ice, a dark shape glowed softly, circular and massive, a buried structure. They began to dig. The ground was tough, frozen solid, but after several hours they uncovered a door made of silver metal, smooth and seamless. No rust, no cracks. It looked untouched by time. Myra placed her hand on its surface. It was warm. Try to open it, she said. The engineer connected a power tool and began cutting through. The moment the first spark hit, the ground trembled. A low hum rose from below, and the door began to open on its own, splitting down the middle. A rush of warm air escaped, carrying a faint blue light. Everyone stepped back as the door slid open completely, revealing a long tunnel leading deep into the earth. The walls were covered with glowing lines that pulsed slowly, like veins. Reyes whispered, "What is this place?" Myra didn't answer. She only took her rifle and stepped inside. They moved carefully through the tunnel until they reached a vast chamber. In the center stood a tall crystal-like structure, suspended in the air by unseen energy. Inside the crystal was something, or someone. Myra walked closer, her flashlight trembling. The figure inside was human. Her voice shook. "No, it can't be." It was Orin. His body floated inside the crystal, eyes closed, his armor fused with strange alien metal. Wires and veins of light spread from him, connecting to the walls as if the entire structure was feeding from his body. Reyes stared in shock. He's alive, or something close to it. Myra stepped closer, touching the glowing surface. The moment her fingers made contact, Orin's eyes opened. They glowed faint blue, the same color as Dominion energy. The team jumped back, weapons raised. But Orin didn't move. His voice echoed in the chamber, calm and distant. "Myra, you shouldn't have come." She felt tears in her eyes. "Orin, what happened to you?" "I don't know," he said softly. "The explosion didn't kill me. The Dominion commander used something, a transfer field. It rebuilt me inside this place. I've seen their memories. The seed, it's alive. It was made to merge with whoever touched it first. Now, it's part of me." Myra's heart pounded. "Then we can destroy it before they come back." Orin looked away. "No. If you destroy it, Earth dies too. The seed isn't just power. It's connected to the planet itself. That's why they want it back. Without it, Earth cannot survive." The lights around them flickered as if reacting to his words. The air grew heavier. Reyes turned pale. "Then what do we do?" Orin's eyes glowed brighter. "You prepare. Because the Dominion is already on their way. And this time, they won't stop until the seed, until I am theirs again." The ground rumbled as distant thunder rolled through the tunnels. Myra looked at him, torn between fear and hope. "We'll find a way to save you," she said. "And the seed too." Orin's voice lowered. "You can't save me, Myra. You can only save the world." Then the chamber lights went red, alarms echoing from deep below. Dominion ships had entered the atmosphere again. The second wave had begun. Myra stepped back, her face lit by the glow of the crystal. "Then we fight again," she whispered. "For Earth. For you." Outside, the frozen plains shook as fire lit up the sky once more. The war for the seed had begun. The ground shook as the first Dominion ships pierced through the clouds, their engines roaring like thunder. Blue fire streaked across the night sky. The war had returned, not as a whisper, but as a storm. Deep inside the icy chamber, alarms wailed. The blue glow of the seed flickered wildly, reacting to the energy from above. Orin stood motionless inside the crystal, his face calm but his eyes bright with a strange light that wasn't entirely human anymore. Myra looked up at the ceiling as dust rained down from the vibrations. "They found us," she said quietly. Reyes ran to the tunnel entrance, scanning the comms. Multiple contacts incoming, air units and drop pods. "They'll be here in minutes." Myra turned to Orin. "Can you stop them?" Orin's voice echoed, low and heavy. "If I use the seed's power, I might be able to block them, but it would draw more of them here. They can sense its energy through me." Myra clenched her fists. "Then we move the seed. We take you out of here." Orin shook his head slowly. "No. The seed is rooted to this place. If it's moved, it will break. And if it breaks, Earth's core will die with it." The team fell silent. Even the air seemed to freeze around them. The sound of distant explosions echoed through the tunnels. The Dominion was landing. Reyes looked at Myra, desperate. "What do we do, Commander? If they reach him, it's over." Myra took a deep breath. We fight. We hold them here for as long as we can. And we find a way to wake Orin's human side before the Dominion takes control. She raised her weapon and turned to the others. Set up defenses. Mines, auto-turrets, everything we have. We make our stand right here. The soldiers rushed to work, their movements sharp and fast. They had no idea how many enemies were coming, but it didn't matter. They would fight until there was nothing left to give. Orin watched them quietly from inside the crystal. You shouldn't do this, Myra. I can feel it. They're not coming just to take me. They're coming to use me. Myra looked back at him. Then we'll make sure they don't. Outside, the storm grew louder. The Dominion ships descended through the snow, their lights cutting across the ice fields. Hundreds of mechanical soldiers poured out, marching toward the buried entrance. The first wave hit fast. Explosions shook the tunnels as energy blasts tore through the ground. The humans fired back, their bullets and plasma rounds lighting the dark corridors. For every Dominion unit that fell, 2 more appeared. It was a wall of steel and fire. Reyes shouted over the noise. They're breaking through the outer door. Myra aimed her rifle and fired, cutting down one of the enemy soldiers that burst through. Fall back to the chamber. Keep them away from the seed. They retreated step by step, the air thick with smoke and sparks. As they reached the chamber again, the Dominion soldiers followed, tall, cold, unstoppable. Then the crystal pulsed. Orin's body twitched, and blue light spread from his hands into the walls. The ground shook violently as the energy surged outward. The first line of alien soldiers froze mid-step. Their armor cracked, their lights dimmed, and they fell to the floor, lifeless. Myra turned toward him. You did it. But Orin didn't respond. His voice came through the room, distorted and strange. It's not me. The seed is defending itself. The blue energy grew brighter, forming patterns along the chamber walls. The Dominion ships above began to lose control, spinning in the sky. Some crashed into the frozen ground, exploding in balls of fire. The seed was protecting its host and the planet, but its power was becoming unstable. Reyes looked at Myra, fear in his eyes. It's too much. If it keeps going like this, it'll take out the whole region. Myra ran to Orin's side, placing her hand against the crystal again. Orin, you need to stop it. You're stronger than the seed, fight it. Orin's eyes flickered between blue and brown, the human and the alien struggling inside him. I'm trying, it's inside my mind. She pressed her forehead against the glass, whispering, You're still Orin Cole. You're still the man who refused to surrender. Don't let it take you. For a moment, his eyes softened. The blue light faded slightly, and his voice became clearer. Myra. Then the explosion came. The Dominion broke through the final gate. Soldiers flooded into the chamber, weapons raised. Myra turned and fired, covering her team. Bullets and beams filled the air, echoing against the glowing walls. The humans were outnumbered but unbroken. They fought with everything they had left. Suddenly, a deep roar filled the chamber. The seed reacted again, pulsing like a heart. Blue energy shot outward, striking both humans and aliens. The entire battlefield froze in blinding light. When the glow faded, Myra found herself lying on the ground. The Dominion soldiers were gone, turned to dust. The rest of her team was unconscious but alive. And Orin was free. The crystal had shattered. He stood in the center of the room, the seed's energy flowing through the veins of his armor. His body glowed faintly, half human, half something more. His voice was calm but filled with power. It's awake now, he said. And it knows you. Myra slowly got to her feet. What do you mean? Orin looked at her with eyes that now shone like stars. The seed has chosen humanity. But it's not done yet. It's calling to something beneath us. Something ancient. The ground rumbled again, deeper this time, like the planet itself was answering. Myra stared at him, her heart pounding. Orin, what did we just unleash? He looked toward the tunnel, where a strange blue light began to rise from the depths. Not a weapon, he said softly. A memory. Something older than both of us. Outside, the skies began to burn once more. The world had stopped breathing. The air inside the ancient chamber was thick with blue mist, glowing faintly like moonlight. The walls pulsed with slow, steady energy, the heartbeat of the seed. Orin stood in the center, his armor cracked but alive, blue light moving under his skin like veins of lightning. He was no longer just human, but not yet alien either. Myra watched him, her hands shaking. "Orin, what happened to you?" He looked at her with eyes that seemed to see everything. "I can hear it," he said quietly. "The seed is speaking to me. It's showing me things. Memories not just of the Dominion, but of Earth, before humans existed." Reyes groaned and sat up nearby, his head bleeding. "What does that even mean?" Orin took a slow breath. "The seed isn't alien. It's older than both our species. It came from Earth. The Dominion didn't create it, they found it here thousands of years ago. They tried to control it, but it rejected them." Myra frowned. "So they came back, to take it again?" "No," Orin said. "They came back to stop it from choosing us." Silence filled the room. The meaning hit Myra like a shock. The Dominion feared the seed because it had the power to choose a race, to give them control over life itself. If it had chosen humanity, then everything in the galaxy would change. Orin looked around, touching the walls gently. "It's connecting to the Earth's core. It's part of this planet. And now, it's connected to me. It's trying to remember something." Before Myra could answer, the ground shook violently. The floor cracked, and blue light poured from the gaps like rivers. Alarms echoed from their equipment. Reyes shouted, "Massive energy spike. Something's rising from below." They ran toward the edge of the chamber as the floor split open. From the depths, an enormous structure began to emerge, a machine buried deep under the ice, miles wide, shaped like a ring. It turned slowly, ancient gears grinding after centuries of silence. Myra stared, speechless. "What is that?" Orin's voice came out in a whisper. "It's part of the seed, a gateway." The machine roared to life, and the blue light reached toward the sky, forming a pillar of energy that shot through the ice and clouds above. For miles, the light was visible, a beacon to the entire world. Back in orbit, Dominion ships turned toward the signal. The invasion fleet, far larger than before, began moving. Myra grabbed Orin's arm. "You've just called them straight to us." He nodded slowly. "I know. But I didn't do it, the seed did. It's waking up something out there, something ancient. And it's not Dominion." Reyes looked terrified. "If this is a gateway, then what's on the other side?" Orin closed his eyes, listening to the voice only he could hear. When he spoke again, his tone was different, deeper, almost echoing. "It says, the first ones are returning." Myra stepped back. "The first ones? Who are they?" Orin opened his eyes. "The true builders of the seed. The ones who made both humans and Dominion. The ones who vanished before time was written." The ground shook again, stronger this time. Outside, lightning tore across the sky, and strange shapes appeared in the clouds, shadows that didn't move like ships. The air felt charged, alive. Reyes backed away from the glowing ring. "We need to shut this thing down before it brings something worse through." Myra turned to Orin. "Can you control it?" "I'm trying," he said, his hands pressed to the ground. "But it's fighting me. It's not just a machine. It's alive, and it's afraid." The ring's center began to change. The light darkened, turning deep blue and then black. Space itself seemed to bend inside it, twisting and pulling. A voice, not human, not alien, whispered through the air. It wasn't sound, it was inside their minds. "The children have awakened the core. The time of silence is over." Myra fell to her knees, holding her head. "Orin, what is that?" He looked pale. "It's them. The origin species. The ones who made us both. They're coming through." Suddenly, the ring exploded in light, and a wave of energy shot outward, knocking everyone to the floor. When Myra opened her eyes, she saw something stepping through the black gate, tall, bright, and impossible to describe. It was neither flesh nor metal, but something between, glowing with shifting colors like liquid glass. It looked at Orin. And then it spoke, not with sound, but with thought. You carry our seed, human. You are its new vessel. You are our mistake, and our hope. Orin struggled to move. What do you want from me? To finish what we began, the being said. To end what we should have never created. Myra raised her weapon, fear and defiance in her eyes. You'll have to go through us first. The being turned its head slightly, its light dimming. You cannot stop what is already decided. The sky will burn once more. Then, in a flash of blue light, the creature vanished, leaving only silence behind. The ring powered down, its glow fading. The chamber was left dark and cold again. Reyes broke the silence. Was that real? Myra nodded slowly. It was real. And whatever it was, it's coming. Orin fell to one knee, breathing hard. The seed says they're not our enemies, but they're not here to save us either. They're coming to erase everything, Dominion, humans, all of it. Myra helped him stand, her face set with resolve. Then we stop them. Together. He looked at her, his expression calm but filled with fire. Then this time, we fight not for Earth alone, but for every living thing that came from it. Above them, the sky began to twist again, the stars bending as something massive moved in the dark. The war for the future of all life was about to begin. The night above Earth was no longer black. It was alive with light, streaks of red and blue fire burning across the sky. The Dominion fleet filled the upper atmosphere. And behind them, a dark hole hung in space, the gateway, still pulsing faintly, waiting. Myra stood on the old command deck of a captured Dominion ship. Her face was tired but steady. Around her, human and Dominion rebels worked side by side. For the first time, they were allies. Orin stood near the window, silent. His armor glowed faintly, alive with the power of the seed. He could still hear it whispering, not words, but feelings. It was scared. Reyes watched the radar. They're coming in waves. Thousands of ships. If those ancient beings break through that gate, we're done. Myra turned to Orin. You said the seed chose us. Then it must have a reason. Can we use it to close the gate? Orin looked down. Yes, but it will cost everything. Once it's done, the seed and I will burn out together. There'll be no second chance. Myra stepped closer. You can't do that alone. He smiled faintly. I have to. I started this. I'm the link. Before she could answer, alarms screamed. The first wave hit, Dominion ships turning against their ancient programming, now fighting alongside humans. The battle tore the sky apart. Lasers, missiles, and plasma fire filled the air like lightning. Myra shouted orders through the noise. All units, protect the flagship. Orin needs time. Orin moved to the control core, placing his hands on the glowing sphere that powered the ship. Blue light flowed from him into the systems, spreading through every wire and circuit. The entire fleet began to shine with the same light, the power of the seed spreading across the armada. From space, it looked like a single enormous flare rising from Earth. Reyes stared in awe. His linking everything, every ship, every weapon. His turning the whole fleet into one mind. In the distance, the gateway flickered. Something massive moved inside it, a shape larger than mountains, glowing with shifting light. One of the ancient beings was trying to cross. Orin's voice echoed through the comms, calm but strained. Myra, when the seed reaches full charge, I'll send it through the gate. When it hits, everything will collapse. The gate, the Dominion code, even me. Myra shouted back, no. We find another way. But he only smiled. You told me once that humanity survives because it never gives up. This is me, not giving up. The ship shuddered as the ancient being emerged fully from the gate, a creature of energy and memory, its body made of light and storm. It looked down at Earth like a god staring at its own reflection. The being's voice filled every mind on the planet. You were never meant to exist. You are the shadow of our design. Return to silence. Orin raised his hands, his eyes glowing bright blue. Then watch your shadows fight back. The seed's power erupted. Every ship, every cannon, every rebel fighter fired at once, a single blast of blue energy tearing through space. The wave hit the creature with blinding force. It screamed, a sound like thunder across galaxies. The gateway began to collapse inward. But Orin was burning. His armor cracked, his body fading. The seed was consuming itself to destroy the connection. Myra ran toward him, shouting, "Orin, stop. You'll die." He looked at her one last time. "Then let me die for something that matters." He closed his eyes and pushed the final surge. The light consumed everything. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then, slowly, the skies cleared. The red flames faded into gold. The Dominion ships drifted quietly, powerless but still. The gateway was gone, sealed forever. On the surface, the world began to breathe again. The snow stopped falling. The wind softened. Myra stood on the open deck, looking up at the calm sky. Her headset crackled. Reyes's voice came through, weak but alive. "It's over, we did it." She smiled sadly. He did it. The clouds above shimmered faintly. For a second, she thought she saw him, Orin, standing in the light, looking down. His voice echoed softly in her mind. "The skies of Earth still burn, but not with war. With hope." And then he was gone. Myra looked toward the horizon, where the dawn was rising. Humanity had survived again, scarred but alive. The Dominion ships began to fall quietly toward Earth, their crews surrendering. For the first time in 1,000 years, the war was over. She whispered to herself, he was right. We never give up. The sun broke through the clouds, lighting the ruined cities and the shining oceans. And as the world began to heal, a single blue spark fell from the sky, a fragment of the seed, landing gently in the sea. Somewhere deep below, it began to glow again. The story was not over.